Hey everybody, it's Justin from Bittner Built, and today we're going to have a little bit of a different video. We're obviously not out in the shop building anything. We're going to talk about when I DIY built this house, or at least general contracted it. I did it a little bit different than most people do, where I used a modular factory company. So my house was built over the course of 7 days in a factory, brought out on semi-trucks, and with a crane they assembled it like Legos. And in one day I went from having an empty lot to having a house that was maybe 80% complete at that point. So it's a very interesting way, and I wanted to kind of detail as much as I could for you. This is a very long video. So what I have done is put in chapter markers throughout. I have timestamps down in the description. So if you're not looking to watch an hour-long video on this, I would recommend jumping to chapter 4, which is my slideshow of video and photos narrating kind of the entire process of the build. You'll get probably the most interesting stuff out of that. Otherwise, if you're interested in doing this whole process, watch the whole thing. Hopefully I can give you as much info as possible. I'm also going to detail how much it cost me in as much detail as I can possibly give you. But I must warn you, every single build is different. I built my house 3-4 years ago. The prices have definitely changed. So you should not take any of those numbers and bring it to your spouse and say, oh, we should do this, honey. You should just look at it as a point of reference. Maybe looking at percentages of where I spent things like, oh, foundation was this much of the percentage of my build. Those might be interesting things that you could take from it. But please do not base your own things off of my numbers. But they're the numbers that I have to give, so I'm going to give them out to you. Let's jump into it today on Bittner Built. What is a modular or factory built home? Here in the United States, typical houses are stick built for the most part. And so you construct a frame, everything is built on site individually. During that process, everything is rained on, everything is exposed until you finally get all the walls, the ceiling, the windows up, and you get it watertight at least. With a factory or modular built home, the entire home is built on an assembly line in a factory in around 7 days, at least with the factory that I used. They had 7 stations, and so your house would move along. So the very first station was building the frame or the shell of that part of the house. Then it would move on. And crazy enough, the second part is they added the drywall, completely opposite of what would happen in a normal construction. They do it because this house is going to be transported on a semi-truck. And so they need to take extra care to make sure that there isn't cracking in that drywall, because that would be a timely, maybe expensive-ish fix for them. So what they do is first they will hang the drywall like it's normally hung in any other home, using nails into the studs. But then, because there's no exterior wall, they walk around the outside and actually spray foam every single side of the stud where it's touching the drywall. So all the drywall in my house, not only is it nailed into place with the studs like it usually would be, there is spray foam in there, slightly insulating it, but mostly it's there as like an adhesive to keep it really rigid to the stud. Now, there was one time that I needed to cut open some of my drywall, and it's actually really, really hard stuff. My razor knife wouldn't go through it. So it's a very interesting product, but it definitely makes the house a little bit more rigid. After that, then they do all the plumbing and electrical work, but from the outside of the house in. Because the drywall is there. It actually surprisingly makes it easier, because as they're doing something, they know exactly where they need to pop through the hole instead of the other way around. So they can just score it, pop out the drywall, and do their thing. As it continues to move down the line, you're getting into windows, insulation, all the other things, but it only takes 7 days for them to build your house, and it's built in a covered environment, so water never enters your home. This process includes everything, and you'll see it in a few minutes, including my kitchen cabinets, my light fixtures, doors, windows, everything. The house is done for the most part as we go through. So this type of construction is very interesting. Now, there's a couple individual unique things about a modular construction that are not typical in regular construction. So in regular stick construction, at least here in my part of the United States, you're using 2x4s for everything. In modular construction, they're using 2x6s for the exterior walls. They want the structure to be more sound during transport. They have to build everything better because it needs to survive being moved, picked up by a crane, and put down on my foundation here. So I have thicker walls with thicker insulation, and that helps with, obviously efficiencies in the house and keeping noise out, which is nice. As I already talked about, they do extra work with the drywall, which is great. And they make it as easy as possible for you to finish the work once you're all finished. So inside the construction, there are little hidden cubbies in the floor that have chases or PVC pipes, so that the second floor of my home, all the electrical wires go to one spot. And once the two boxes come together, there's a pipe that leads all the way to the basement. So it's super easy for my electrician to just feed all those wires down that pipe, and surprise, they're all in the basement. That does give me opportunities in the future. If I need to run things in the wall, I have these cool chases around, which is kind of nice. So you want to build a house. Well, you need somewhere to put the thing, so you need to have land. When you're looking for land, typically here in the US, you have to purchase the land with cash. It is not included on your mortgage. You can't borrow that money for that purchase. So that can sometimes be a big roadblock for a lot of people in being able to build their own home. For me, the land is what got me to build the own home, because on a whim, I called on some land that I saw here in Bridgewater. And the typical lot for sale in Bridgewater is $400,000. I live in an affluent state. It's expensive here. And this is a pretty affluent town too. The majority of houses sell for around, $650,000, $700,000 here. And we have some super big houses here too. But it's a really nice town. It has grade A schools. It's where we wanted to live. The two lots that I found that were next to each other, I was able to purchase them for $28,000. And when you put them together, they make a little bit over a half an acre. How did I get those for so cheap, you would say? Well, these lots have wetlands all over them, and so nobody thought that they could build on this lot. As we sit now in my house, I have a swale in the front, which is like a ditch for water to go through that goes under my driveway through a big pipe. I have a swale in the backyard. I have wetlands over there, and I have a stream on that side of my house. So I am well protected from the Black Knight should he try to invade my home, as I have a moat around my house, as it were. Water stinks, but going back to this, that's the reason why it was so cheap. So when you're buying land, you have to typically buy it with cash. Most mortgages will not finance that land purchase. And so what I did with this one was I gave each of the landowners a $1,000 deposit, and then we signed contracts that said, since you do not have approval to build on these lots, I will go seek the approval. So you're going to give me X amount of time. I think it was like 3-year time period. And once I get approval to build on this land, I will purchase the final price from you. If I am turned down for approval, then you will refund my money and you can do whatever you want with it. So to me, that was a pretty worthwhile risk for me to get an amazing deal. So I did my $2,000 deposit, and then I hired an EPA consultant. Getting things approved through the EPA, I wanted my best chance of success. So hiring the consultant, lawyer, and my engineer, as well as all the money that I had to pay out for fees and things during that process, came to about $10,000. The EPA consultant was $5,000 of that. And there was some payola greasing the wheels in there too, because it was, well, would you like for your paperwork to take several months or 1 month? Overall, it took a year from the time that I started to the time where I got permission from the EPA to be able to disturb some of the wetlands and build the house. That was a long wait, but it was an important wait because once I got that, I knew I could pretty much overcome any other obstacle to be able to build on my lot. So that's number one. Number two, then I had to deal with variances. So my lot was very wide, and in my town, they want you to have a big lot. They want you to have at least a 50-foot front yard, 50-foot backyard. They don't want houses close to each other, and they want a minimum of a half an acre, which I did satisfy that criteria. But my lot is only 100 feet deep. They want a 50-foot front yard and a 50-foot backyard. That means I could have a 0-foot house in the middle. So I violated those rules. So I had to get a variance. And I was hoping that a variance might be like $6,000, which was the amount of money they took from me up front. And they said, well, if it doesn't come out to be this much, we'll refund you the rest. In the end, it took 2 years to complete the variance process and cost me $30,000 before they gave me the approval to break their arbitrary rules that they had on the community here. That really stunk and took a lot of time. So I had to assemble 6 of these giant binders and satisfy a million different things that they wanted to do. Now, I will admit that some of that time period of that 2 years is my fault because I did everything myself. I was trying to do everything myself to keep the cost down all across this time period. So I was the one that was contacting every different agency, going to the sewer authority, all sorts of stuff. So there were many times where I messed up, had to keep redoing things, but still, that was the process. So just keep those things in mind. I built a house with my family out in Pennsylvania many years ago, and it was just very like, go do what you want. So different rules in different places, of course. And of course, in a lot of places, you might not have these arbitrary rules as far as, space goes. But I just wanted to put it out there because that was where I was at. So I spent $28,000 on my lot. I spent $10,000 on my EPA pursuit, and I spent another $30,000 on the town. So overall, I'm still in way cheaper than $400,000, which another lot is selling for. But, it's still money out of your pocket. So you have your lot, it's time to build your house. So you need a company. I used a company called Westchester Modular out of New York State. They were a nice company. They didn't sponsor anything or whatever here. I just figured I'd give them a little plug because they did a good job for me. So kudos to them. When you want to approach one of these companies, they really don't want to engage with you until you have your property. So at least under contract or something. Once you do, you're going to be expected to put down a deposit. So I had to put down $25,000 cash on mine. So that is another cash outlay that I had to do. And that's why building a house on your own is often prohibitive for a lot of people, especially like younger couples that don't have that cash available to them from the get-go. I sold my previous house, and so I had a pile of cash from that one that I was able to allocate towards this one. So, that's typically the way it goes for most of us these days. These companies want you to use a authorized modular contractor that is going to oversee the construction of this house. Now, I have owned construction-based companies, and one of my business partners at the time was already pre-approved with this company as an approved modular builder. So that's how I was able to general contract this myself through that relationship. Of course, different companies, different rules, et cetera, et cetera. So you might want to look into that. But I did want to note that maybe I had a little bit of a cheaper experience in that realm because I had that availability to do that. Now, once we were engaged with them, I brought them the floor plan that I wanted. They have architects on staff that will do all of that for you. They have their own plans, and you can come to them with anything, though, like I did, and they will transform it into the final blueprints for you. There are some cost-saving efficiencies, though, to take into account. So the main thing is, how big of a box can you fit on a semi-truck by law? So States are different, and I learned that. Depending on the state, it is 12 feet, 14 feet, or 16 feet. In my case, I could only get a 14-foot deep box onto a semi-truck. So for me, if I wanted to do 2 boxes, I could have a 28-foot deep house, and that's what I have. So I chose the biggest box that I could fit based on law in New Jersey. That was not what my original plan was. So if you are even a foot over that, even if you're 6 inches over that, you now need a 3rd box instead of 2 boxes. They won't break the rules for you. So if you have a whole nother box, and that's for every box, maybe you have the upstairs and the downstairs need to be 2 feet more. That's more time on the line in the manufacturing. That's more semi-trucks. Lots more expensive. It was really, really expensive to go over that 28 feet. So for me, I wanted to take the most out of that, and so I went with 28 feet, and I kind of eliminated some architectural stuff that you could do on the outside where, like, you know, you have different box depths when you look at the front of the house. I figured that's something that I might add on myself later, just because I'm crazy like that. But I wanted the most floor space on the inside of the house. So I wanted a straight up rectangle. I didn't really care as much about the exterior look for me, but that might be something extremely important for other people. But do know that these type of builders can build any shape. They can build circular, they can do whatever. But just understand, the more types of things like that, the more semi-trucks you might need, the more the cost goes up. So we retooled our house. We originally, even as we were going through this process, we were going to do more of a like 3,200 square foot house. And then once all this cash bills started piling up from the lot and everything else, we decided, you know what, let's scale it back a little bit. So we ended up building this house at 2,050 square feet between the first 2 floors, another 1,025 on the basement, and then 525 square feet in the garage, plus the attic up above the garage. It's more than a big enough house. And I'm sure the European viewers are like, that's wasteful and gigantic. I know. But, you know, it's a normal size house here. The process then moves on to picking all of your extras. So you'll see in the next piece, I'm going to go through my whole process, and you'll see photos and videos. The house comes with everything in it. I mean, you get to pick out your kitchen cabinetry. It's in it. The countertops, the light fixtures, everywhere. All of your vanities, how you're going to do your bathrooms. Is it going to be a surround, or are you going to tile? Things like tile cannot be in the transport, so they do not do tile. They cannot transport stone countertops, so you either will have it come with no countertops, or they can put laminate countertops on there. There's actually no difference in price, so we opted to have the laminate, and we decided, you know what, we'll keep the laminate for a year, get back to normal with money after building this house. And then we went and, as Christmas presents for my wife and I, we put some granite countertops in at that point. But you can pick all of this stuff. The only things that they do not install are your flooring. So, you know, hardwood, tile, carpet. That's it. And granite countertops. Everything else will be in. Even your electrical outlet covers will be on everything. So you can pick your doors, you can pick whatever, you know, you want to pick. At that point, once you lock everything in at a certain point, they're going to give you a scheduled date on the calendar, and that's when they're going to build the house. But you have to have everything else in line and ready to go before then. So you have to do you know, all of your foundation work and everything, and have that approved, obviously. So you'll get a tentative date, and they'll expect you to have all of your things that you need to have done before then. If obviously it's not ready, they'll bump you back. But, you know, there's a big scheduling thing. So you might get bumped back a lot farther than you want to if you do not come in on time with your other required things. Okay, so we're starting with our wooded lot. I ended up cutting down every single tree that we removed on the property myself to save money. I'm experienced in that. And I cut down a lot of maple cherry and oak. And so what I did after I felled all the trees was just put an ad out on Craigslist and said, hey, come get it. And a whole bunch of woodworkers came and took the wood because I was too busy doing other stuff. Now, I did not clear cut this lot. I wish I would have. You can see the excavator here. I didn't take down all these trees. My property keeps going in that direction. And I left a whole bunch of trees on this side. That was a mistake, in all honesty. I was trying to save money. And because you have to pay the town for every single one of the trees that you keep up. But, you know, in the long run, I wish I just would have cut them all down and replanted. Here you see the excavation, so they're digging out my basement here. It's all made of shale, which is horrible material to dig with. It's super hard, rocky stuff, which will come into play later. Now, inside our basement, once we dug it, we filled it in with gravel because we're going to be using a product called Superior Walls for the basement. It's a factory-made concrete product that's really nice. It is more denser than your typical concrete that is poured. It is poured on a vibration table, so they get it very, very dense. And it comes pre-installed with all of these really nice metal studs and foam insulation already inside. So they actually use the foam insulation as the form when they're making it. And then they just go ahead and drop it in with a crane. Here they also add in some footers for the pillars that we're going to be using in the basement. And it comes with its windows too. You'll notice that on the top here it is bare concrete, and then there are all these holes everywhere, and that is where we're going to have to attach a top cap. This is a close-up of those exterior walls. You can see that there are these tubes that go through both here and towards the bottom, and that's for your electrical work inside the walls of the basement, or plumbing if you're going to do some PEX. Here you see my beautiful wife adding in these top caps. It was definitely a family affair on everything doing this house. So on top of that wall, we had to add pressure treated lumber and then attach it with these huge bolts and then tighten them to a particular setting. I also installed a French drain all the way around the foundation inside the gravel, 2 sump pumps, and here is a radon pipe that I installed prior to putting down the concrete. Here you can also see that I was digging by hand another sump pump pit because I decided I wanted 2, one diagonal from each other, and that was some really, really hard work. Before the concrete was brought in, I installed the vapor barrier and put down the wire mesh for the concrete. So you can see the concrete guys putting in my basement. And here it is once they do everything. You can see these buckets right here. You need to leave those footer pads that were placed here exposed so that when we put the pillars there that the house sits on, I will then concrete over them later. Also right here you'll see this metal strap with 2 nails in it, and then another 2 that you can't see. They go all the way around the perimeter. You can see a whole bunch of them over here. When we put the house down on top of this, you'll bend them up and then nail the house to it with this. That way, it is what kind of holds the house to the foundation at that point. And here you go, my first semi-truck arrives. You have to have a property near you that you can use for staging. So I have your Knights of Columbus type of place near me, and so they allowed us to park our semi-trucks over there overnight for staging. So this is my garage. They flat pack the walls, and this is the shingles and the roof. And then this is my first box for the top. So this is my boys' bedroom, guest room, and part of my master bedroom. So here's what it looks like inside. Everything is really done except for the floor. And if you see things that are missing, like a toilet right here, they are present in the house somewhere else in a box. They just didn't ship fully installed because you'd want to put down the flooring anyway first. So here you can see a surround, all the fixtures, a vanity, mirror. There's a light fixture up there already. In the boys' room, there is wire shelving in the closet already with a pocket door already installed. And the molding is pre-cut but loose everywhere. It is cut to perfection, which is super nice. And they leave it loose just for, your different flooring installation options. You might be doing a thicker hardwood, so you might need to lift it up, for that purpose. But definitely great job with all the molding. This is my upstairs hallway, and you can see wherever two boxes meet, they leave drywall off, both on the ceiling and in the walls. They also have all of the light fixtures up, but they remove some of the glass pieces. But even the light bulbs are already in the sockets inside the fixtures. This is our laundry room. Windows are in, shelving, plumbing, venting. Attic pull-down ladder. This is the water closet in the master. There's me. And you can see my entire vanity with mirrors and light fixtures are in. And then where my master shower is, because I wanted to do tile and not do a surround, the plastic base is in, but it is just the cement board on the walls ready for me to install the tile. Then we have a closet. Now in the closet, this is a great thing to note. On every single one of the boxes, all the electrical goes to one hatch that is cut into the floor so that we are able to drop the electrical down to the basement. But this is the second floor. The first floor that this is going to sit on top of has PVC pipe chases. So you basically have a tunnel from the second floor down to the basement that you can drop wiring or plumbing through. Even all of our fixtures are in here and here. This is my kitchen and living room. And so you see all of my kitchen cabinets are in, all my pendant lights are in, all my hi-hats are in, the doors are in. Everything is already done. Even the outlet plates are on here. All of this is additional extra stuff. So these are all my toilets for the rest of the house, brand new in box. And this is spackling for drywall. And here's vinyl siding for the roofing and soffits. Everything that we need, even towel bars are included. They're all here. See some of the cabinetry. All right, so the first box is coming in. You see we have a very large crane here, and they're just going to go ahead and pick it up from 4 points. Just fast forward. And there it goes, just being swung into place. And then they lower it down gently. They use pry bars and cable winches to kind of move it into place. The first one obviously being the most important. And then they're bringing more boxes in. So it's just one box after another. This is box 4 coming in. It's pretty amazing. Literally all of the boxes were set within about an hour. So once the boxes were set, you'll see that I'm pointing to the roof, and I'm going to fast forward when my finger's out of the way, because this was a video for family members and stuff. The roof is already on, but it's on a hinge right here. So the roof will end up being picked up by the crane, and then the supports will be picked up and nailed into place to hold the roof at the right pitch. As well, you'll see this big, blocking look thing here. It's on a hinge as well. It will flip over, and that's the soffits that extend the roof into the front of your house. Maybe we'll get a shot of them lifting it up. You can see they add in this structure that was laying down before, and then they nail it into place once it's completely in place. After that, we're going to bring on the side pieces because the roof has now been raised to the proper height. And then that fills in the gaps here on the side. And then my garage. So my garage was flat packed, and here is a word of warning because there was something about my garage that was a surprise to me. They assembled my garage with the 3 sides, and then here the crane is bringing the joists up. And they set the joists there, and then they just left them there. And I was like, what's going on? They said, oh, we don't build the roof. You have to build the roof in place. That was a surprise to me, and so I had to quickly have a roofer come out the next day because I didn't want to get rain in the space. So something to note. So they just left them all stacked right here for me to finish up. Now, we have the house assembled at this point, so let's talk about this view we see here. They leave off the vinyl siding in certain areas, where the majority of the vinyl siding is on, but they want the last row of vinyl siding to be added on by you or the contractor in charge. As you transition between these two boxes, the garage here, they kind of stagger where they are, so that's why there's this weird pattern here. And then between the boxes, not only are we missing the vinyl siding, but we are missing a piece of wood here, as well as a sheet of Tyvek. Here you can see the big bolt that's going through the side of the house, marrying them together, and this is actually a vent port right here. I believe that's the vent for the microwave. Now we do a video where we go up into the attic, on the second floor attic, so you can see that all the installation is in. All of, I forget the terminology for this, but this foam pink piece here that's there for ventilation is in. All of your hosing is a flexible hose that goes up to vents up on the ceiling. And you'll see that right now there is light up at the top. They have an additional top cap piece that they end up putting on. So currently where we're at, that's why you still see light there. And you can see all the different supports that were lifted up and put on. I have since put solar panels on my roof, and so I have additional bracing that the solar panel company installed. But this house was definitely still weight rated for snow, even though this was like a fold together roof system. It still is structurally sound. Now, one thing that I had to do, because I am the general contractor on this, they set the house on my pillars in the basement, but they didn't screw them in. They only used one nail to hold it in position. So that was, and I knew this, was one of my jobs going into this build out. I had to go ahead and drill all these and put in my lags. Here is the additional shingles and roofing for my garage once we go ahead and build it. And now you can see the inside. My boxes are together, but wherever the box comes together, they leave off a piece of drywall in any joint area. So the roof, the walls, whatever that might be. This is temporary removable pieces of wood that I knocked down in a minute. Also, when you have a transition like this, they leave off, in this case, it's a decorative molding piece that we end up putting in the hallway here, and they left off the door because it's just, the two pieces need to come together first. Same up in the boys' bedroom here. They do not include stairwells to the basement, so that was something that we had to custom build. So we had a ladder here on install day. Down into the basement. You can see the high ceilings here, which I'm happy with. The staircase going up to the second floor is present, but it is not in place. It is slid forward. And that's because of height restrictions when it was shipping. So I then, with a company that I was using, had to slide this forward and do the permanent install after the fact. So later that same day, I got to work and I went ahead and put in all of the missing wood pieces that go across here using a nail gun. Then I went back with Tyvek, tucked it underneath, and then we had my guys start to put on the vinyl siding in the places that it was missing. You'll notice that it does not have the gutters or the soffits on. That was stuff that we had to install, as well as a staircase landing out in the front of the front door and the back door. Here's me in ground zero. And of course we didn't have electricity yet, so we had lots of generators and lights going. Now a negative here is wherever the two house boxes come together, they actually have a missing piece in the floor. So they provide you with these strips that you nail into place, but if you are not using a thick flooring material like I did, I cheaped out because of just, I was running out of money. We ended up doing the vinyl wooden floor planks, so it's not like the sheet good, it's individual engineered flooring planks, but you know, it's the cheaper stuff. It's showing this divot, and because it's not a perfectly flat thing, and there is a big empty knot in one part of my floor that I now have a crack in because of that void. So I do highly recommend not using a vinyl flooring product with this. If it had been a hardwood, it would have bridged this gap, no problem. You know, these little itty bitty gaps. But, you know, something to note. Here we are the next day with roofing crew finishing up my roof over the garage. So they banged that out pretty quick. You see, here we go, it's all finished. And then I immediately that night started adding plywood up in the ceiling because I added a pull-down attic up here for storage. And so I wanted to get this storage space ready as soon as possible so that I could start throwing our stuff up there. I started adding in lighting and tile and extra shelving in the kids' room. We ended up moving the stairwell forward and building the stairwell in the basement. One of my friends, Eric, owns MC Construction. He sent out some of his guys to work on that, so thanks to Eric. And then my brother-in-law, who's an electrician, he did my electrical for me. Now, the Westchester Modular included the entire circuit breaker panel as well as all the breakers, and all of them are the super expensive GFCI $60 a piece breakers that we installed all the way through. That's something I wanted to note. If you watch this channel regularly, we're typically woodworking, and I had to replace all of these with the cheapo ones because they were popping too easy with all of my power tools running, even ones in other areas that shouldn't be happening. So we replaced them with your standard breakers, and everything works fine now. So here we are, backfilling everything and putting in gravel before we have our driveway paved. This was all the next day. So I was very on top of everybody, like go, 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 because I want to get in this house as soon as possible. Something else to note right here, I made a huge error, and it can only be said that it's my fault. I really needed to grade this at a more extreme angle. We're very flat back here. And the problem is I have wetlands on my property. I have a swale over here for water drainage. There's a stream down here, and there is a road behind my house. And when we had a hurricane come through this road, the water drainage got stopped up. And so I got water in my backyard, and you know, water next to your house is never good. Here you can see those PVC pipe chases. There's a whole bunch of them in my basement. They're in a lot of places. And then you see how there is PEX hanging down from each of my fixtures in the kitchen and the bathroom, so that my plumber can just easily tie into everything and put the rest of the plumbing in. Here is our stairwell that we ended up building, and stairwell that I built quickly out the back door. And then I think 3 days after we had everything done, the concrete guys came back and poured the concrete for the garage. The garage concrete can't go in until the house is in place. I tiled my bathroom and put in a sliding door. And then my plumber caused me to have a leak in the basement. So this is leak number 1. Again, I'm on a very wet property, so this is something that I have been endlessly trying to deal with. And so basically we were having a huge rainstorm, and he had a big trough on the other side of this main, and because he needed to have it inspected. But the water pressure from the trough filling up, as well as him not caulking that well, meant I had a leak into the basement. Nothing super extreme, and we fixed it pretty easy, but you know, water's bad. So my guys ended up putting up the drywall in here. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then I had Home Depot install my flooring. Again, this is that more cheapo stuff. And carpet upstairs. And then I had an HVAC company install up in the attic and in the basement. And of course, their install guys decided to tag my floor in my attic. So I got a nice little discount because of their stupidity. We finished up the siding, the soffits, the gutters. All of this was going on all at the same time and in the first week that we were in the house. So we ended up putting in our meter and getting it all ready for electrical, but it still took about 3 weeks before the electric company came out and hooked me up for electric. And we started painting on the inside. I built the stairwell with the balusters here. That was not anything that was included. We had to build that from scratch. And then we fully flooded my basement, which, you know, I was trying to get out of my storage units that I had. And so we had put a whole bunch of stuff in the basement and ruined a whole bunch of stuff. And at the end of the video, you'll also get to see that my brand new HVAC unit, there it is. My brand new HVAC unit had a foot of water in it. I was so angry. This was caused by my excavator. I have wetlands all around me and a high water table, so my sump pumps run quite regularly, and they decided to move my sump pump cables because I was running temporary ones at the time, and they somehow just decided to put them back in the window. And so the sump pump was literally pumping the water just into the basement. It was not good. It was a huge cleanup job, and we lost a whole bunch of our stuff down here. But it wasn't that the house was actually leaking. It was the stupid excavators who did that to me. So I'm fine with saying that because that was a huge screw up on their part. Then we come to the bad part. The flood was bad, but this is the worst part from a money perspective. I had to run a sewer line from the top of my shared road down to my house, which is over here. And my engineer estimated that it would be around 15 grand. And then the lowest cost price that I could get was 30 grand. And then this ended up having shale and tons of hard granite in it to the point where the bucket on this giant excavator snapped. And after a week, the excavator said, you know what, I quit. We're moving on. And I had to beg him to stay and ended up having to pay him $2,000 a day to excavate and put in this sewer pipe because we were literally waiting for this sewer pipe. It was the last thing we needed. And so we'll talk about this in the money section, but I mean, add a normal person's salary to the cost for a stupid sewer line. This was the bad part of the job. Here you can see I also had to do footers for my front deck. And we made a huge mess of the road, but ended up cleaning it up later. And then this is the sewer line finally making it to my house with a clean out right here. And then we also had to put in a additional manhole out here and then give service to all of my neighbors. Put down topsoil, seed, hay. I did that all myself. And then you can see the road still is in pretty bad condition. So then my friend Henry with Henry's Paving came out and added a nice level of gravel out there. And then, of course, the most important part, install of my doggy door, our electric doggy door. So our dog Luke Skybarker here, he has a nice penned-in area, so he can just go out there whenever he wants to. And the door operates on a little tag on his collar, so it opens up when he stands there and then closes again so we don't have any animals or bugs or anything coming in the house. Lastly, on that manhole that we installed when we got our final inspection on it, they wanted me to add concrete inside. So I personally climbed down into the active sewer and added about 20 bags of concrete and had to do this trough in the middle between the two pipes. But, you know, you got to get stuff done, right? So that is the total construction of this house. We need to talk about inspectors really quickly. I built this house with two things that, at the time at least, maybe were not familiar to my inspectors in my town. Superior wall basements and the modular house build. Westchester has an inspector on site in the factory and fully inspects your house as it's being built, as I assume all the other factories do as well, because otherwise, how do the inspectors know what's in the walls, where the electrical is, how things are done? So they have these people on site, and your house comes with stickers and documentation saying that everything was done to code for the state that you live in. So you shouldn't have any issues because it's already been inspected the entire way. My town had some big issues with the foundation stuff. Superior Walls does not need a footer. I was dinged because I did not call for a footer inspection because there isn't one to inspect. That was a huge problem, apparently. And then I actually got red carded and had to stop all construction at one point because my excavator was filling in my garage with dirt before the house was on it. In a normal construction, you wouldn't do that. But in this construction, you are required to do that before the house goes on so that it supports the wall. Now, I presented a manual from both Westchester and Superior Walls, they do a great job. They give you a manual to give to the inspectors beforehand. Obviously, they didn't read it or didn't care. So that is what created a lot of problems. So what I recommend to you, if you are going to use either of these products, bring that manual to the town early, like I did, but ask them first very nicely, are you familiar with any of these? Have you inspected any of these before? Is this something new to you? If it is something new to them, let them know some of these things. Like, there is no footer in here. Do I still need to call for a footer inspection? You'll be coming over just to look at a gravel hole in the ground. But I will still do that for you if you need me to do that for you. So maybe to head off some of these problems that I had, make sure that you gently inquire instead of just giving them the manuals. So I gave you some positives at the beginning, and overwhelmingly, I'm very positive on modular construction. It was very fast, very cost effective. But let's talk about a couple negatives. There's really only three that I can come up with, to be honest. The first one is the drywall. The drywall is immaculate throughout the house, as it should be where they installed it. But where we installed it, even though I had good people doing drywall in the initial install, there are cracks, there are bulges, there are all sorts of stuff, and it's from this house settling over the past 3 years. So I had a professional come out and re-sand, retape, redo all that stuff. Even afterwards, it's still kind of visible to me, and it really annoys me. And it's only in certain spots. It's basically right down the middle of the house. But it annoys me every time I see it. I'm a perfectionist with a lot of this stuff. So the solution for me is I'm probably going to build a fireplace in the living room, like an electric one, with a whole mantle, and do some floor-to-ceiling type of thing that hides it. Across the ceiling, I'm probably going to do some moldings in all of the rooms that have this, with some ceiling issued, some decorative molding type of thing that's going to hide it. But it stinks that I have to do that stuff in the first place. But it is a common thing that you will hear with, pre-manufactured homes. The next thing is the flooring. I would definitely recommend tile, where you also do a skim coat before the tile goes on, carpet, or hardwood, real hardwood that, is this thick. I cheaped out and we went with the artificial hardwood that's basically vinyl. Flooring planks, and where those boxes meet and we put that extra piece of wood in there, you can kind of tell in some places that there's something going on there. And then in one other place, we actually had the vinyl kind of crack a little bit because there was like a knot in the wood that was a void. And so now we've, probably from one of the boys being crazy rough in the house, but nonetheless, this type of flooring, not a good idea for this house unless maybe you do an additional underlayment first. So overall, not a horrible thing, but it's something that we've come to realize. And so we're probably, maybe this year, maybe next year, going to replace it with hardwood, like full, real, authentic hardwood, not this cheapo stuff. The last issue with this build is the vinyl siding. And it's not all the vinyl siding. The vinyl siding that came already pre-installed on the house, A+. But it's that one strip that we had to add, and I'll put a picture up of it. I have a bulge in the front of the house that's visible. And that one really annoys me. Luckily, it doesn't travel around the house, so I will probably hire a professional to fix it. I'm sure we can. And I have additional pieces of vinyl that give you more than what you need. So I have them up in the attic. So I have additional pieces that I can use. And it hasn't been that long since we built the house, so there shouldn't be a color fading issue that's major. Additionally, over the garage, I have one of those pieces that keeps popping off. And I keep going up on the roof and putting it back in again, and it keeps popping off. So I will probably have a professional come out and do it. And so this might be a Justin, his employees did it issue. And maybe they didn't do something correct. But, we'll see. I needed to come up with the negatives here. Overall, though, I still think highly positive of the entire build, especially because of the price, the speed, and it is a superior quality in many aspects to a regular house because it needs to survive being transported and picked up by a crane and all this other stuff. So I am happy overall with the construction of it. Let's take a look at the numbers, but again, this was my build. Every single build is different. You might not have a variance. You might have other sort of crazy expenses. This is prices from 4 years ago now. I keep saying 3, but time flies, right? So exactly 4 years ago. And so prices have gone crazy since then. So I would assume it would be much higher, but I also live in New Jersey, which is a very expensive state. You might be in a state that is much, much, much cheaper. So again, just take this as information and not like as a perfect guide for what you're going to be doing. All right, let's take a look at the breakdown. I broke this into different pieces so it's easy to digest. So purchasing the land in total was $38,000. For all my variances, permits, construction turned out to be $31,459. Again, all of this is pre-construction stuff. So now we get into the initial construction, which is the excavation and my basement. And so that in total came out to be $56,695. The house from Westchester Modular, so from foundation up, everything that you see in my house, I'm at $157,629. And that doesn't include a $3,500 crane fee for when it's setting it on my property. And then also I had to pay some guys $3,000 to finish up the roof the very next day. So this one was a surprise to me. That's not a little number. So make sure if you're going down this road, see if the full construction of your garage is included or if you need a crew to finish it up for you. For interior work, I did $23,000 on my HVAC system, $9,800 on a plumber. Lucky for me, my brother-in-law John is an electrician, so it didn't cost me anything. Thank you very much, John. Christy's cousin, Steve Maso out of PA, he did our painting for us for $2,000 since we're a family member, so that was nice of him. Thanks, Steve. We had laminate flooring, tile, and carpet. I did the tile myself, but the others were installed free or minimal fee from Home Depot at $8,147. Some pumps. I ended up buying the tankless water heater for the plumber because I ended up taking out a Home Depot project loan, which is only at 2%. So that is something to take a look at. That is different than a credit card. If you have like a large project in your home, you can apply for one of these at a very low interest rate, or at least it was when I did this. And so I got a pretty large credit limit under that to be able to buy all the things that we needed for the house. The appliances went on here. So I was trying to buy everything I could and then give it to the contractor. So like I bought the tankless water heater for him rather than him buying it and upcharging it for me, of course. For exterior work, that sewer pipe cost me $63,000. I just added up all the totals. It was really bad, but we were at the very finish line for finishing our house. It was all that we needed to have done, and after he hit a week of working on the job, he wanted to walk away, and I basically had to beg him to stay, and so it was $2,000 per day every day that I had to pay them in order to get this put in, and I ranked up a lot of credit card debt on that one because I just didn't have the cash. My friend Henry with Henry's Paving out of Washington, New Jersey, he and I bartered, so I gave him some services with my business and he installed my driveway for me. So thanks, Henry. Check him out if you need driveway services. We bought garage doors, again on that credit from Home Depot, paid someone to install it. My guys installed the siding, gutters, and soffits. I built a deck in the front, back stairs, and then it was $3,500 to run utilities. So all our exterior work after the house was in was $71,000. But, if it wasn't for that stupid pipe, that should have at least been $50,000 cheaper than it was. This would have only been $20,000, $21,000. In total, I ended up spending $414,764 to build out this house. And overall, I was exactly on my budgeting the entire time except for that sewer pipe. So in a perfect world, I would have come in at $364,000. But you know what? Every single construction job has issues that happen. It's the rare one that doesn't. So you got to factor that type of stuff in. Now, I took this number from Zillow. Obviously, Zillow is not perfect. It actually doesn't account for a lot of things, like we just put a pool in at the house and a whole bunch of other things. Not that that raises my value that much, but anyways, Zillow puts me at $680,000, and so if you look at these two numbers, I would make a $265,000 profit overall on the house. That is good. No matter what, I will end up making a profit on this house, and a lot of that was due to the fact that I did as much as possible myself, and that I was able to get the property at a phenomenal price. That was really the thing that spurred everything on, was that opportunity generated by a really, really affordable piece of land that we could get. I did break this down just because it is important to understand that I ended up spending $151,000 in cash that I had on hand. That is a lot of money for a lot of people. And so this is the thing that usually is a huge hang up for people not going into like a development that's being built. But if you're trying to look for a piece of land and build a house yourself, there will be a decent cash outlay typically in order to be able to do that. I ended up mortgaging $263,000, and my mortgage is around $1,400 a month. That does not include the property taxes, and I break that out separately because, of course, property taxes are different everywhere. My property taxes are around $2,000 a quarter. Actually, I have it right here. Nope, $2,600 a quarter. So if we take a look at that divided by 3 months, $866 plus $1,400. Overall, my mortgage payment, when you factor that in, is $2,266 for this house. Well, that was my build adventure. I hope you got some good information, especially if you're thinking about maybe doing a modular home build. There are some negatives in here, but definitely nothing that can't be overcome. And I think the positives outweigh the negatives. It is a very quality construction build, even in many aspects higher quality than what a lot of other homes are stick built at. It came in at a very affordable price for what it is, and it happened very quickly too. Other than all the other stuff that I had to personally deal with. If you isolate just the build time, it's pretty amazing. So definitely something to take a look at. Again, all my numbers that I showed you, those were my numbers. Yours will be completely different, especially since prices have gone up so much since COVID. But I wanted to show them to you just for, some certain base references, possibly. You can see where I spent money and where I didn't, etc. So I hope you'll like and subscribe if you got some good content out of that. That's the only way that my channel grows. So I appreciate all those subscriptions. And of course, stay safe in the shop. I'll see you in the next video.